Nobody clapped the day Mama Nene shouted, "I am carrying my 10th child." She was 51 years old. We were all standing in the village square, staring at her like she had said something terrible. Even the village crier forgot to ring his bell. He just stood still, mouth open. The woman who had become both a shame and a mystery to our small village had done it again. Mama Nene was pregnant. Again. And nobody knew how to respond. Some people looked away. Others hissed in disbelief. One old woman whispered, "This is an abomination." I was 16 years old at the time, but I will never forget that day for the rest of my life. Mama Nene lived in a small mud house near the edge of Ogwama village, not far from the path that led to the stream. Her compound was always full. Barefoot children running about, scattered bowls, old clothes hanging on ropes, and someone always crying or fighting. But there was one thing that was always missing: a man, a father, a husband. Each of her children had a different father, and none of those men ever stayed. I knew all this because I grew up close to her compound. Our farms shared a border, and sometimes our clotheslines nearly touched. My mother used to warn me, "Don't go and spend too much time at Mama Nene's house. That place is full of confusion." But I was young, and I was curious. I liked playing with her children. They were rough, but they were kind. And I liked Mama Nene, too. She was always talking, telling stories, laughing, or shouting at someone. But on the day she shouted that she was pregnant with her 10th child, she didn't laugh. Her voice was loud, but it wasn't playful. It was full of anger, like she was daring the whole village to say something. Nobody said anything. We just stared. Let me take you back a little. Mama Nene wasn't always known by that name. Her real name was Onome. When she was young, she was the most beautiful girl in the village. She had light skin, a tall body, and a bright smile with a small gap in her front teeth. People said that back then, men would fight over her near the palm oil market. But beauty does not always protect a woman. Her first child came when she was just 17. She had fallen in love with a trader from another village. He sold fine red cloth and promised her a future. But the moment she got pregnant, he disappeared. That was the beginning of everything. The village started to whisper. Her parents were ashamed. They sent her to live with her grandmother at the edge of the village. But Onome was not the kind of girl who let shame destroy her. She raised her child alone. And then another man came. And then another. Every time she thought it would lead to love, it ended in disappointment. Every time she hoped a man would stay, he left before the baby could say father. By the time she had 5 children, people had stopped calling her Onome. They now called her that woman. The one who never learned. The one who brought shame to herself. But I saw something else in her. I saw how she cared for her children. I remember one rainy evening. The stream had overflowed. I was helping my mother carry cassava back home when we saw Mama Nene sitting on a rock near the water. Her wrapper was soaked from the rain. She was breastfeeding a baby, while 2 others were lying on a mat under a tree. She looked up and smiled at us. Her smile was tired, but full of strength. My mother didn't smile back. She pulled me away and said under her breath, "This is what happens when a woman has no discipline." But that wasn't the full story. As I grew older, I began to understand more. I learned that Mama Nene had been used and abandoned by many men. Some of them were already married. Some lied to her. Some just wanted her body and nothing else. One time, she tried to report one of them to the village elders, but they laughed and said, "You've had too many men already. Who will believe you?" So she gave up trying to defend herself. Even then, she never gave up on her children. She woke up early to farm. She sold firewood in the market. She fetched water for elderly women. She cleaned the village school in exchange for food. Her back was bent from years of labor, but her voice never failed. When one of her daughters was mocked at school for not having a father, Mama Nene marched into the school compound, faced the teacher, and said clearly, "If a father refuses to stand for his child, then the mother must stand twice as tall." Everyone in the village heard those words. By the time I turned 20, Mama Nene already had 9 children. And then she became pregnant with her 10th. The village called it madness. Some believed she was cursed, but I think it was something different. I think she was a woman who never stopped hoping, a woman who kept choosing love, even when it hurt her, a woman who believed in her children, even when the world turned away. That day in the village square, when she told us she was pregnant again, she looked straight at us like she had nothing to be ashamed of. Maybe she didn't. Maybe we were the ones who should have been ashamed for judging what we never truly understood. After the day Mama Nene shouted her pregnancy news in the village square, she stopped coming to the market. She stayed indoors. Even her children, who used to run around and laugh loudly, became quiet. The whole compound changed. She no longer sang while cooking or joked with neighbors. Her voice was missing. Even when she walked past, she looked down. Her pregnancy was heavy, too heavy for someone her age. Everyone could see it. She was 51, but her stomach looked like it was carrying twins. Some people feared for her life. I overheard Mama Aye, the village nurse, telling my mother in a hushed voice, "This pregnancy is dangerous. She may not survive it." But somehow, she did. One hot afternoon, the air was dry and dusty. I was walking past her house when I heard the sharp cry of a newborn baby. It was strong and clear. A baby boy. Her 10th child had arrived. But there was no celebration, no naming ceremony, no visitors, not even the usual sharing of food. Just silence. A few days later, I took a bowl of peeled cassava and walked towards her house. I told my mother I was taking it to someone else, but I wanted to check on her. When I knocked, her second daughter, Omi, opened the door. Her face looked tired. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying. "Is your mother inside?" I asked. "She's sleeping," she replied quietly. "Can I leave this here?" She nodded. "Thank you." As I turned to leave, I heard a weak voice from inside. "Is that you, Adaku?" It was Mama Nene. "Yes, Ma," I answered. "Please come in." I stepped inside the room slowly. She was lying on a mat. The baby was asleep beside her. She looked thin. Her eyes were sunken and her skin was pale. It didn't feel like the same woman I used to see shouting in the mornings. "He's a handsome boy," I said, trying to lift the mood. She nodded slowly. "But he will never know his father." The room became quiet. She continued, "You know, Adaku, sometimes I ask myself if I am being punished for something, but then I look at my children and I know they are not a mistake, even if the world says they are." I didn't know what to say. I just sat beside her and listened. That day, she told me things she had never shared with anyone else. She told me one of the fathers had beaten her so badly she lost a tooth. She told me about a man who promised to marry her but was also secretly involved with 3 other women. She told me how she cried quietly at night so her children wouldn't hear. I asked her why she continued to have children when the fathers always left. She looked at me and said, "Because each time I hoped it would be love. I hoped that man would stay. And when he didn't, I held the child close and said, 'At least this one didn't leave.'" Her voice shook. A tear rolled down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away. "Do you know what hurts me the most?" she asked. I shook my head. "People say I have no shame, but this village raised boys who have no honor. I carry the shame, but they walk free." That sentence stayed in my heart for years. By the next year, things got worse for her family. Her second son got involved with criminals in the nearby town. The police came looking for him. Her third daughter became pregnant at 15. The village began to mock her again. "Like mother, like daughter," they said. One night, someone threw a stone at her house and shouted, "Stop giving birth to fatherless children." Nobody did anything. Not the elders, not the youth leaders, not even the church. Everyone stayed quiet. Except me. I was 22 then. I had started teaching at the village primary school. I knew her children well. I saw their hunger, I saw their pain. But I also saw their kindness. Despite everything, they were hardworking and respectful. I decided to speak up. I called for a meeting in the village square. I stood up and said, "If we blame a woman for having many children, we must also blame the men who left her." I said, "If we shame a mother for being alone, let us ask where the fathers are." I said, "This village failed her." Some people laughed, some shook their heads. But then, something unexpected happened. An old man, Baba Okon, stepped forward. I knew the man who fathered her first child. He was my cousin. He ran away because he was too weak to be a father. But I kept silent. I regret that. Then another woman came out. My brother used her too. He got her pregnant and never looked back. The meeting lasted until nightfall. One by one, people spoke up. Old secrets came out. Regrets poured like rain. Everyone began to see her story differently. That day, everything started to change. That day, the shame began to shift. After that village meeting, the one where secrets came out and people finally told the truth, things began to change slowly for Mama Nene. It didn't happen overnight. Some villagers still avoided her. Some still whispered behind her back. But something had shifted. People were no longer pointing fingers the same way. Some began to show quiet respect. Others dropped small gifts outside her house. A bowl of rice, a cup of oil, a piece of cloth. No one said anything, but their actions spoke. For the first time in many years, someone came and helped repair the leaking roof of her house. Another person sent her daughter to teach Mama Nene's children evening lessons for free. Little by little, the same village that once turned its back on her began to look in her direction again. As for her children, they each walked different paths. Her first son, Kelechi, moved to the city. He learned how to repair generators and eventually opened a small shop. He would send money home whenever he could. Her second son, Chidi, the one who once got into trouble, came back home after some years in prison. He didn't come back as the same boy. He came back quiet and humble. He spent his days working on farms, planting yams and cassava for old people who couldn't farm anymore. Some said he had changed. Others said life had taught him a hard lesson. But Mama Nene welcomed him like the prodigal son. Her third daughter, Amarachi, gave birth to a baby girl. People thought history was repeating itself. But Amarachi did not become her mother. She stayed in school, she worked hard, and she raised her daughter with love and care. When she graduated from a teacher training college, the whole village came out to clap. Even the headmaster smiled and said, "This is a miracle." And Mama Nene? She grew older. Her steps slowed, her back bent further, but her eyes were still sharp. Her voice remained firm. She no longer shouted like before, but when she spoke, people listened. Sometimes I would visit her and sit under the mango tree outside her house. She would tell me stories about her past, about men, about motherhood. One day she said to me, "Adaku, do you know the hardest thing about being a woman in this world?" I shook my head. "It's not the pain of childbirth. It's not poverty. It's the way people expect you to carry your scars in silence." But I refused. I let my scars speak. That's why they hated me. Her words stayed with me. Years passed. One by one, her children grew up and moved on. Some left for the city, some stayed behind. The house became quieter. The compound that was once full of noise and chaos became calm. Then one morning, the village woke up to sad news. Mama Nene had passed away in her sleep. There was no wailing, no shouting, just a deep, heavy silence. I remember walking to her house that day, tears already falling. Her body lay on the mat covered with a clean white cloth. Her youngest son, Ebuka, the 10th child, sat by her side holding her cold hand. The elders gathered. The women group came. Even people who had once insulted her came to pay their respects. And then something happened that I will never forget. Her 10 children stood side by side, from the oldest to the youngest. They looked strong, united, grateful. Each one stepped forward and said something about their mother. She fought for us. She never gave up. She loved us when no one else did. She taught us how to stand alone. She was more than a mother. She was a warrior. By the end, many people were crying. I looked around and saw men wiping their eyes. I saw women shaking their heads in regret. I saw the village crier, the same one who had gone silent years ago, beating his gong slowly, as if asking for forgiveness. They buried her behind the house near the mango tree, the same tree where she used to sit and tell stories. The children placed a simple stone on her grave. It read, "Here lies Nene Onome, a woman who carried more than she ever received." That evening, I sat under the mango tree thinking of everything. I thought of how the village judged her without knowing her pain. I thought of how strong she was, even when no one stood by her. I thought of how she turned her suffering into strength. And then I realized something. Mama Nene may have died without wealth, without a husband, without applause, but she left something more powerful than all of that. She left a story, a lesson, a legacy. Today, whenever I see a single mother struggling or hear someone mocking a woman for her past, I remember Mama Nene, and I speak. Because silence, I have learned, is how injustice survives. And in the quiet wind that passes through Oguama village at night, I still feel her spirit, strong, unbent, and proud.